The 3 biggest steps on the road to success. We sometimes talk as if imaging were a modern discovery, something that we in our 20th century wisdom have brought to light. Maybe in a way our generation has rediscovered imaging, but actually it is older than the pyramids. Much older. The other night, for example, I was reading an article about the marvelous cave paintings of southern France and northern Spain that are said to be at least 25,000 years old. In those paintings, figures of men armed with spears are shown attacking animals resembling buffalo or bison. The article said that the drawings were part of primitive rituals designed to bring these cave-dwelling hunters good luck in their ceaseless quest for food. In other words, before the dawn of history, men were vividly imaging goals essential to their survival and reinforcing those images by painting them with primitive but lasting colors on the ceilings or walls of the caves that were their homes. Now, hundreds of centuries later, we don't go forth with sharpened sticks or flint-tipped spears to hunt woolly mammoths or ward off saber-toothed tigers. But modern man still has to make a living in a tough, competitive, sometimes hostile world. The 20th century salesman who stalks his customer through the concrete canyons of a modern city is not very different from his remote ancestor in his primary goal, which is to put food on the table for his family. And just as the caveman tried to reinforce the image of himself as a successful hunter, so the modern breadwinner must reinforce and believe in his ability to wrest a living from the world that surrounds him. I'm convinced that successful people in all walks of life use imaging constantly, whether they know it or not. So in this chapter, let us talk a bit about the part it plays in pursuing that often elusive will-o'-the-wisp called success. Imaging can help in 3 crucial areas. The first is goal setting. If any endeavor is to succeed, the first thing you must do is choose your goal, visualize it clearly, and fix a specific date for arriving at it. Several years ago, a young man came to me and announced rather forcefully that he wanted to get somewhere in life. He seemed to think that I could help him on his way. "I want to make something of myself," he announced. He pounded his fist into his hand. "Yes, sir, I'm determined to get somewhere." "That's fine," I said to him. "Where do you want to get?" "I don't know exactly," he told me, a bit taken aback. "I just want to achieve something worthwhile." "Well," I said, "when do you want to achieve this ambition?" "Oh, sooner or later," he said. "The sooner the better." I tried again. "Tell me," I said, "what, exactly, do you want to do with yourself?" He gave me a rather injured look. "If I knew that," he said, "I wouldn't be here bothering you." "Look," I said to him, "you must have certain areas of interest or aptitude. What sort of thing appeals to you, or comes naturally to you? If you could wave a wand and have a career happen to you, what would it be?" He shook his head sadly. "Those are tough questions. I really don't have the answers." "Let me be blunt," I said. "You say you want to get somewhere. Well, you'll never get anywhere unless you know where that somewhere is. You have to have a specific goal firmly fixed in your mind, a goal that you can see as plainly as you see me sitting in front of you right now. Not only that, you need to have a target date for achieving that goal. Not a vague point somewhere in the future. An actual date. A deadline. And once you've set a deadline, you must image yourself meeting it precisely on the nose. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?" Somewhat hesitantly, he said that he did. "Write your goal. Now, I suggest that you go home and write down what you want to do with your life. Until you write a goal, it is only a wish. Written, it becomes a focused objective. Put it down on paper. When it is on paper, boil it down to a single sentence. What you want to do, exactly when you intend to start, which should be right now, exactly when you plan to achieve your goal. Nothing fuzzy or hazy. Everything sharp and clear and definite. No reservations or qualifications. Just one strong, simple, declarative sentence. Then send me a copy of that life-changing sentence, because that is what it is going to do, change your life." "My life," he echoed. "Exactly," I told him. "Change you from a fumbling, bumbling, confused drifter and dreamer into a confident, focused, productive, useful person. I want you to make half a dozen copies of that sentence and put them where you'll see them at least 3 times a day. I want that pledge to sink down through all the levels of your conscious mind and deep into your unconscious mind, because that is where it will unlock the energies that you will need to achieve your goal. You will be imaging with power. He shook his head slowly. How can you be so sure of all this? He demanded. How do you know? I know, I told him, because when I was about your age, my father made me do just what I'm urging you to do. I was hesitating between 2 careers, one in journalism, one in the ministry. My father made me think it through and write down my chief goal in life in one sentence. That sentence was, serve the Lord Jesus Christ and spread His word as far as I possibly can in the course of my lifetime. When I showed my father that sentence, he said, all right, that's it. Now if you will print those words on your conscious and subconscious mind, pray without ceasing, and work like the devil, that goal will come to pass. So that is what I've tried to do. That is what I'm still trying to do with every ounce of strength and energy in me. My visitor was silent for a while. Finally he said, all right. I'll go home and do it. And he did. He sent me a copy of the sentence he finally wrote down. It is a large and praiseworthy and difficult objective, but if he does what my father said, if he will print it on his mind, image it, pray about it, and work like the devil, I know he will achieve it. He has already made significant progress in the image direction. Imaging a goal is a kind of promissory note made out to yourself. And even when these pledges are made casually, or only half seriously, the unconscious mind can hear them and react to them. I have a novelist friend who told me that when he was a cub reporter on a small newspaper, not much more than a messenger boy, really, his father grew impatient with his apparent lack of progress and wrote him a letter asking him if he thought he would ever amount to anything in his chosen profession. I was a little annoyed at his lack of confidence in me, my friend said, so I sat down and wrote him a note, half joking and half serious. I admitted that I seemed to be making little progress, but I added that I was only 21 and had a lot of time stretching out before me. Furthermore, I told my father, I knew exactly where I was going and when I would arrive. I said that at age 30 I would be a great newspaper reporter. At 40 a great city editor. At 50 a great short story writer. At 60 a great novelist. At 70 a great grandfather. At 80 a great admirer of pretty women. And at 90 a great loss to the community. My friend went on to say that his father was much amused. But you know, he added, leaving aside the question of greatness or lack of it, my career has followed that predicted pattern to a remarkable degree. Of course it has, I told him. You had a realizable wish, a realizable dream, a realizable image. You pointed the compass of your subconscious mind in the direction of that dream. And that is where it has carried you. You'll notice that my novelist friend almost instinctively set time limits for each successive stage of his development. By my 30th birthday, he said to himself, I will be this, by my 40th I'll be that, by my 50th I will have achieved this set of goals, and so on. And his unconscious mind took him quite literally. It will always be obedient to a strong, definite self-image. This deadline technique is extremely important in major ambitions and in minor ones. A woman approached me one night after I had given a talk in a West Coast city. She had quite a lovely face, but it was supported by a truly massive body. She looked almost as wide as she was high. She said abruptly, "How old do you think I am?" Then, when I hemmed and hawed a bit, she said, "Come on. No evasions. Tell me the truth. How old do you think I am?" "Well," I said, "I'm no expert in these matters. But I'd say you are 48 or 49. And maybe I was stretching the truth a bit at that. She said, "I am 35. Isn't it awful? I'm so fat it is a disgrace. I hate being like this. Every day I look in the mirror and see myself not as an attractive woman, which I used to be, but as an obese female. Have you ever heard a more disgusting description than this? Yes, obese male, I interjected. Well, she continued, I look into the future and see myself getting even heavier and even more unattractive. And I get so discouraged and depressed that life doesn't seem worth living. Can you help me? Well, I said, perhaps I can help you help yourself. But first we are going to have to change the image you have of yourself, especially when you look into the future. She images her weight goal. I found a place where we could talk without interruption, and made her sit down. Now, I said, tell me how much you weigh right this moment. 187 pounds, she said sorrowfully. And how much do you want to weigh? A lot less than this, she said. No, I insisted. Give me an exact number of pounds. All right, she said. I want to weigh 128 pounds. And what do you want your measurements to be? She looked at me as if this were a strange question to be coming from a minister. I haven't thought about that, she said. I took a pencil and on the back of an envelope drew a simple outline of a human figure. Here, I said. Take this drawing. Add arrows pointing to waist, hips, bust. Put numerals alongside the arrows indicating the number of inches you want to measure in each area. She took the pencil and wrote down some numbers. Good, I said. Memorize those numbers. Tell your body that is the size it is going to be. Now, when do you want to be this size and weight? Next week? She smiled. I know it won't happen overnight. Ah, I said, but that means you can conceive of its happening, which wasn't the case a few minutes ago. Now, let us pick a target date. How about the 1st of January? That is 11 months away. If you want to lose 59 pounds, that is only a fraction over 5 pounds a month less than 2 pounds a week. That certainly is obtainable. And if you believe you can, you will do it. You have to visualize the pounds melting away. You have to see yourself fitting into smaller dresses. You have to anticipate the admiration on your husband's face as the girl he married emerges from the prison she has been living in. Finally, you have to look into the mirror and image, not an obese female, but a new and vibrant and beautiful woman who has a rendezvous with next New Year's Day. If you hold that image in your mind for 1 minute every morning when you wake up and 1 minute every night just before you fall asleep, and if you ask God for spiritual strength to persevere, the dream will actualize itself. I'm sure of it. And I want you to send me a telegram next January 1st, telling me that I was right. Well, the telegram didn't come, and I was a bit disappointed. But about a week later, when I was shaking hands with members of the congregation after Sunday service at Marble Collegiate Church, a beautiful, slender woman shook my hand and asked, "How old am I?" I stared at her in amazement. "Oh, it's you!" I exclaimed, because at first I hadn't recognized her as the obese female from out west. But here she was, completely transformed. I asked, 128 pounds? She said, 127.5. Thanks to you. Don't thank me, I said. Thank the good Lord for working with you all these months. And in particular, thank Him for the power that He put into your unconscious mind through imaging, the power that turns wishes into realities when the wishes are strong enough. If setting worthy goals is the first step on the road to success, the second is the belief. No, the conviction. That you are capable of achieving those goals. There has to be in your mind the unshakable image of yourself succeeding at the goal you have set yourself. The more vivid this image is, the more obtainable the goal becomes. Great athletes have always known this. The high jumper sees himself skimming over the bar. The golfer facing a difficult shot images the ball soaring over the intervening obstacles and landing squarely on the green. The place kicker in football keeps his head down as he kicks, but in his mind's eye he holds the mental picture of what he wants to happen in the next few seconds. He sees the great arena full of tense spectators, the onrushing defensive linemen, the blockers holding them off, the ball spiraling back to the holder, the thud as his foot connects with it at precisely the right angle, then its spinning flight squarely between the uprights. The more intensely he images this before it happens, the higher his confidence in himself and the better his chances of making it happen. Discard the failure image. Even people who have a long record of not succeeding can be turned into tremendous achievers if they will discard their images of themselves as failures or ne'er-do-wells and become God-trusting individuals whose attainment of desired goals is just a matter of time, and a specific length of time at that. In Australia a few years ago, I met a remarkable man named John Burt Walton. He has since become a close friend. He told me that when he started out in life he seemed to be caught in a peculiar failure pattern. Whatever he tried would start out well and then end up badly. As a schoolboy he dropped out of several schools for this reason. He became convinced that it was his destiny in life to make good beginnings and then watch them fade away. And naturally, since that was how he saw or imaged himself, that was what always happened. At one point, he got a job with the Australian division of a famous American company. The same dreary pattern seemed to be unfolding. He started out well and then things began to slide. This didn't surprise him much, it was what he expected to happen. Then the company sent a motivational speaker out to give some talks to their Australian employees, and Burt Walton was in the audience. The visitor told his listeners that they could achieve anything they wanted to, if they would just believe that they could do it. He told them to visualize themselves moving up in the company, receiving promotions, gaining energy and dynamism as they went, right up to the very top. You can if you think you can, he kept saying. Most of you are only using 10% of the powers that are in you. Most of you are letting the fear of failure hold you back. Most of you are living in a dungeon of self-depreciation and negative thinking. All the ingredients of success are right there inside you, if you'll just turn your thinking around. Don't keep telling yourself you can't do this or you can't do that. Knock the T off the word can't. You can do anything. Anything. If you think you can. Burt Walton had never heard anything like this in his whole life. He told me that he walked away from the lecture almost in a state of shock. He realized for the first time that his image of himself as a person who started well and then faded away was all in his head, a state of mind that could be altered any time he made a firm decision to alter it. He said, I walked past the office of the head of operations for New South Wales, and I visualized myself in that job. I imaged myself sitting at that desk. I said to myself, I can have that job if I think I can have it, and from now on I do think I can. I know I can. I'm going to have it. I will have it. And then I'll move on from there. Burt Walton went back to work with tremendous enthusiasm and confidence and energy. He received promotions. He became manager of operations for New South Wales. Finally, he became the head of the company for all of Australia. I was told by other Australian friends of mine that he probably could have become the head of the parent company also, but his career took another turn. His father was the owner of a store and wanted his son to come in with him. So Burt Walton built that store into one of the largest merchandising chains in Australia. He was knighted by the Queen. Where once he had been dogged by failure, now everything he did was crowned by success. I'm not an unusual person. He told me. I really have only an ordinary brain. It was that one talk that changed my self-image by giving it a little twist. It made me see myself differently, and so I was different. Well, I told him, if you have only an ordinary mind, you have certainly used it in an extraordinary manner. And indeed he has. Sir John Walton is a living example of imaging, of positive thinking and faith. People who want to succeed in life not only have to build a strong self-image, but they also have to get that image across to the people whose goodwill and support they need to get ahead. All successful salesmen know this. When I was a youngster growing up in Bellefontaine, Ohio, there were only 2 Jewish families in town. One was in the clothing business. Emil Geiger ran the leading men's clothing store. Emile was a good friend of my father. He used to come to our church to hear my father preach, because there was no synagogue in town. Everybody liked Emile. If a customer came in and Emile couldn't fit him or supply him with what he needed, Emile would courteously direct him to another store that could. "I'm not just selling clothes," he used to say. "I'm selling the reputation of Emile Geiger as someone who wants to help his fellow man." The secret of success in business is this: think of the customer's needs, not your own. Create the image of yourself as someone who cares about the customer, not about the customer's money, and you will always do well. Emile used to give me odd jobs now and then. I remember that one time he had a lot of old marked-down suits that nobody wanted to buy, so he persuaded me to take a friend of mine and go out into the countryside with a horse and wagon and try to sell the suits to farmers. Tell them these suits are good merchandise even though they are marked down. And the suits will serve them well. Be sure that each customer is happy with his purchase. Emile was pleased with our successful sales campaign. Years later, Emile came to New York and heard me preach. Afterward, in my study, he said, "Well, Norman, you've come a long way from Bellefontaine, but you are still a salesman, just as I trained you to be. You are offering something that people want and you are thinking about their needs, not your own. What's more, you see yourself as a successful seller of ideas, and so other people accept that image of you, too, and listen to what you have to say. If you just keep on giving people what they know they need, and make them feel you care about them, they will come from miles around to hear you." I shall always cherish Emile's memory, for he cared enough to help me when I was a boy. Another friend of mine who projects his own self-image into the minds of his customers is Joe Girard, listed in the Guinness Book of World Records as the world's greatest automobile salesman. There was a time in Joe Girard's life when he looked like the world's greatest failure. Everything he touched went wrong. He was up to his ears in debt. The bank was trying to repossess his house, his car, everything. One cold night in January he came home, climbing the back fence and sneaking in the back door to avoid bill collectors. When he walked into the kitchen, his wife told him that there was no food in the house. She had nothing to give the children. At that moment the doorbell rang. Another bill collector. Joe Girard didn't open the front door. Instead, he stooped down in the darkened hallway and prayed a prayer of desperation. He was convinced that he was a total failure as a husband, as a provider, as a human being. He asked the Lord to help him, to give him another image of himself, to turn his life around. The next day he went to an automobile sales agency where he knew the manager, and begged him for a selling job. The man felt sorry for him and agreed to give him a chance on a commission basis. All that day he dialed people he knew, trying to sell a car by phone, but nothing happened. The timing was unfortunate, just after the Christmas season. It seemed nobody was buying cars. Making a sale gets him started. Finally, just before closing time, a man wandered in. "Just looking," he said. He had no intention of buying anything. By now, Joe Girard should have been totally discouraged. But somehow, looking at the man, he visualized a warm, friendly encounter that would result in a sale. He imaged himself receiving the commission money, then bringing home bags of groceries to his family. He saw the food steaming on the table, the hungry children enjoying it. He fixed the whole scene in his mind, then he began to talk in a friendly and outgoing spirit to the man, whom he now saw as a promising prospect. In the end, impressed by Joe's sincerity, the man agreed to buy a car. The owner of the agency gave Joe an advance on his commission that enabled him to go out and buy those groceries. He took them home. The whole dream came true. After that, there was no stopping Joe as a salesman. He never let his customers forget who he was or what he did for a living. He kept records and sent each customer a card on his or her birthday. If they were Irish, he sent them a card on St. Patrick's Day. If they were Jewish, he sent them one on Jewish holidays. With each sale, his image of himself as the most effective car salesman in the world grew stronger. And he continues to put that image into the thinking of prospective customers to this day. If the first step on the road to success is to set a goal, and the second is to believe you can reach it, and the third is to image it, the fourth and most important is this: let God be your partner. God stands ready to help you at all times. I know this, for He has always helped me. And that is for sure. He gives quiet but accurate guidance to those who ask for it. He gives determination to the hesitant, and courage to the faint-hearted. The combination of strong imaging backed by strong faith is irresistible. Years ago, a young woman named Blanche Green, who had always led a sheltered life, married a schoolteacher. 5 years later, her husband had a serious accident that left him an invalid. It was a frightening situation for the young woman. But Blanche was a deeply religious woman. She was a believer in God and so in herself. As she prayed for help and guidance, an image came to her. It seemed to involve a company that dealt in women's clothing, and she also seemed to see herself playing an important part in the company. This puzzled her because she had no connection with the clothing industry. Then she happened to meet 2 young men who were in the clothing business. The wife of one had designed a new kind of foundation garment for women. The men had the patent for it, but no money with which to launch it. It was still in the idea stage, going nowhere. But to Blanche, this chance meeting was a clear directive from the Lord. She saw it as divine guidance. She told the 2 young men that she was sure she could sell their new design profitably for them. Naturally, they asked her what selling experience she had had. None, she told them. But I know how it should be done. You get the name of a prospect. Then you pray for that prospect. Then you believe that a helpful and friendly meeting will take place with that prospect. You form a picture in your mind of a successful encounter. You believe that God is always with you. You go out in the name of the Lord, and you meet that prospect, and you sell her the garment. Oh, you're crazy, they said. No, she said, I'm not crazy. If you go out in the name of the Lord, being loving and honest and caring, holding the success picture, the doors will open for you. If you let me try it, you will see. Reluctantly, they let her try. So this pretty young woman, with no business experience at all but with a positive attitude, went out every day selling door to door. As she approached each door, she would affirm to herself, if God be for me, who, or what, can be against me? Her manner was so calm and so friendly and so open that people trusted her instinctively. I'm going to help American women shape up, she used to tell her customers, smiling. And she did. In the end, she became the president of a successful corset company and a legend in the garment industry. The reason for Blanche Green's success was as simple as it was powerful. Faith in God removes tension, fear, worry, and all the negative forces that hold a person back from success. If God be for you, and if your goal is a worthy one, He will be for you, then what is there to worry about? If the most powerful force in the universe is on your side, why should you have any fear of failure? A kind of serenity comes over people who have this conviction, and in the center of that serenity more often than not is the sunlit oasis that we call success. Serenity. That is a most important contribution of religion, isn't it? Religion is a set of beliefs and attitudes that gives calmness and assurance to struggling human beings, gives them the courage and determination they need to get through this life, plus a blueprint that, if followed, will lead them triumphantly into the life to come. I see this serenity at work in God-trusting people all the time. Not long ago, I was in the office of a well-known industrialist, a self-made man in the automotive industry. It was late afternoon, quitting time. I knew he had a tremendously heavy schedule, but his desk was completely clear, not a single piece of unfinished business on it. I complimented him on that. How do you do it? I asked him. Well, he said, there was a time when I would finish up a day with papers all over my desk, each one representing an unsolved problem. I tried to figure out what was wrong, and finally I came to the conclusion that I was worrying too much. I hesitated to make decisions because I worried about whether they were the right decisions. I worried about the consequences of the decisions I did make. Worry was acting as a kind of paralysis, slowing me down, holding me back. Evidently you got rid of it, I said. How did you manage that? If you watch as we leave this office, he said, I think you'll see. When we did leave a few minutes later, I noticed on the wall near the door a calendar, the kind where each day is indicated on a page that can be torn off and discarded. Underneath the calendar was a scrap basket. My friend paused at the door, tore off the top sheet of the calendar, and slowly crumpled it into a ball. He closed his eyes and his lips moved soundlessly. Finally, he opened his hand and let the crumpled piece of paper drop into the scrap basket. Great invention, the scrap basket, he said with a smile. When you want to get rid of something, all you have to do is drop it there and it is gone. So that's what I do with my worries at the end of every day. I ask the Lord to watch over my responsibilities while I am away from this office. I thank Him for His love and His care. Then I open my hand and let the worries and the problems of the day simply disappear. He snapped his fingers. Just like that. I know there will be new problems the next day, but I don't worry about them. The Lord will help me deal with them. And anyway, the energy I save by not worrying today will be channeled into problem solving tomorrow. I ask the Lord to watch over my responsibilities while I'm away from this office. That man had taken the third and crucial step on the road to success by asking God to be his partner in decision-making. He asked for support and guidance. He imaged the infinite wisdom and sagacity of the Almighty being focused on his problems, untangling them, clarifying them, working out solutions that would appear, when the time was right, in flashes of insight or nudges of intuition in his own mind. He built his house upon the rock, knowing that when the sea of troubles swirled around it, it would still stand. When you do that, you don't have to worry about pursuing success or happiness. They will come to you.